bevo.com.
Isn't there an opportunity for somebody like Waterstones who's got a strong offline presence, who's also building a strong online presence, to be able to leverage both with each other so that you're then going to compete in a much stronger position than a pure online retailer?
Yes, I think just to step back from that for a moment. I agree with you, but just to step back for a moment. I mean, there is an enormous pleasure about buying the books in a physical bookshop. We're a small country and we have an enormous amount of bookshops in it, and very few people are very far from a good bookshop. There is an enormous pleasure about going to a bookshop, looking at the stock, reading a couple of pages, putting it back again, feeling the book, looking at the book. It's a sort of tactile thing, and the range of choice is so wonderful in a good bookshop. Now a much bigger range of choice is available online, but the actual physical experience is a different one. I mean, I use Amazon. I must be one of Amazon's biggest customers personally. I use Amazon a tremendous amount, but I use them for books which are, my wife is in the movie industry and does a lot of research, and we use them for books which we know a bookshop are likely to hold. But for sort of normal book buying, I go into a bookshop. Amazon, the biggest bookshop in the world is Waterstones in Piccadilly, which is not 300 yards from here, just down Piccadilly on the right-hand side, and it's 53,000 square feet, and it's the biggest bookshop in the world. And when we set it up, we put into that bookshop 280,000 titles across X number of copies per title. So the biggest bookshop in the world, crammed to the gills, had in it 280,000 titles. Now there are in Britain, in print, 800,000 titles. Now let's say 200,000 titles are absolute garbage. Let's just keep the arithmetic simple. Yeah. So we get to 600,000 titles, which are genuine books, which have a real market. And the biggest physical bookshop in the world can only take 50% of it. Now what Amazon have done marvelously is dealt with that 50% of the market, which even the biggest bookshop in the world can't stock. Difficult backlist, academic titles, technical titles. And if you look at the mix of what Amazon is actually selling, they have a virtually 100% share of that market, and a surprisingly small share of the current book market. And that, I don't think Amazon saw that when they arrived here in 1907, and we didn't predict that was going to happen. That actually is what has happened, and it's broadly the same in America.
It's almost like you've got two competing principles. You've got the 80-20 principle, and then you've got the long tail. So sort of, it's an interesting playoff with Amazon and the offline world.
No, absolutely. And the tail is so long in the book. In this country, it's interesting, this country, we publish 4 times as many, I can say 5, almost 5 times as many books in this country as are published in America. And the market is 1/5 of the size, because there's 1/5 of the population. Broadly, the readership per capita is the same. But we publish an enormous quantities of books here. And we always have done. I think it's one of the glories of English publishing, actually. It's so pluralistic. But it does create a colossally long tail. And what Amazon have done brilliantly is provided customer access to that long tail.
Yeah, it was last year, I understand, you went back, or maybe it was the year before, you went back with a private equity consortium to try and buy back your much-loved Waterstones. So if you were going to do that, is that still of interest, and where would you take Waterstones now?
The Times, when that story broke, was that a couple of years ago, wasn't it? The Times must have spent a fee, I don't know, £5,000 or something, on getting a psychiatrist to write a look into Tim Waterstone's mind. I don't know what fee they paid him. So this asinine article was written about this sort of thing of not being able to leave behind something you've created, and this obsession. It's not true. I mean, what I saw was a commercial opportunity at that time to take Waterstones. I thought Waterstones had got itself in a weaker condition than it should have done. I saw a commercial opportunity to buy it. I had the funding to do so, and we made an offer. I mean, it wasn't. I'm enormously proud of it. I love the fact my name's above these wonderful bookshops. But it's not an obsession. That was a commercial opportunity. I had very, very keen backers to acquire it, and I went for it. Now, what would I have done with it? Well, I can tell you exactly what I would have done with it, which is returned it back to some of its roots, which I felt the current owners had slipped away from. One was personal service in the stores. I think is currently it's given much less emphasis now than it was in our day. The stock range has been reduced very much. There's far less titles actually available in the stores and used to be. I think that's a mistake, and I think that the truth of it is that a very pluralistic range and a very expertly merchandised range is a fantastic draw to the public. I think that's a great mistake. And I felt some of the promotional activity was misplaced. Now, all those three together, and also the head office costs were enormously too high against the traditions the company was had a very small head office. So we had a very clear business plan, we had funding, we went for it.
We'll be pleased to know, Tim, that when we actually bought your book, Swimming Against the Stream, we bought it in Waterstones.
Bevo.com